want to talk about what their ideas might be for how they're going to use SBLi?
You mentioned logs.
As every student logs in, it captures their name and their student ID number, and therefore all the responses, every question that they answer, all gets attached to their name in a log that's on. It's up to you what you want to get out of the logs. If you tell us, the logs are created with XML, which is just a markup language, and we can actually map. So if you tell us, I'm only interested in the questions that were allocated scores, then we can actually map that to an Excel spreadsheet and give you every student and every score for every question. But what we can also give you, and this is depending on your research and what you're interested in, is how long, what location the student chose to go to first, how long they spent at that location, where they wanted to go next. So if you are actually studying the methodology behind a way a student studies, maybe comparing the difference between a first year and a third year, or comparing the difference in the decision making behind a female to a male. You've got these kinds of possibilities for research and study. So if you wanted to look at anything like that, so we can give you. It captures absolutely every click, every minute, everything that a student does within that scenario.
I can give you an example of what we're doing with car stuff. We've got a quiz at the end. And the quiz contains questions that are of increasing complexity, from simple questions to more complex questions. And what we want to see is whether or not doing this has actually helped the students to answer higher levels of complexity. So we cannot just, the log just doesn't tell us if they're, what their answer is, so for right or wrong. It also tells us how much time they spent answering each question. So you can get an idea of how much thinking it took to actually think about that particular concept.
Which is what first grabbed my attention when Greg told me about this stuff. It's fair enough just to develop the quiz, but I'm, as a researcher academic, you're probably more interested in how they get in there and can you get some information started to actually write stuff up, and that's where we were at the moment. So because we're with Julie in the next month or so, I thought we can get something out of this. So exam results came out yesterday. We're just at the point of just going to start matching it up and comparing stuff. So it's a pretty powerful tool if you can actually have this as the behind the background.
Another use of the log is about 3 weeks ago at Massey University in the vet department. I think there was about 100 fifth-year vets for their final exam had a scenario. They did it live for their examination. And what he'd done is there's a number of interesting things he did. They're interested in vets dealing with small animals, dogs. And so what he did was build a template of the sorts of measurements you get in terms of blood counts and all sorts of things, x-rays, and you would have them for a healthy dog. So when you've got a sick dog, then you would modify, so the blood count could be this, and so on and so forth. And so then he could rapidly, I think he did about 14 scenarios in about a month, just by using that template. And then what they did was, the other thing they did was they didn't use prerequisites. In SBLi you can have prerequisites that says you can't do this until you've done that. He used that in a very limited way, and so he presented them with the problem. They had an initial diagnosis in examining the dog, and then they were in a vet hospital, so then they could do all sorts of things. They could take blood and then go to analyze it down a microscope. They could take x-rays and so on and so forth. So it was, almost completely open. And so and then at the end they'd give an answer as to what they thought the problem was. But more than that, they used the log to see what they'd actually done. Where did they go first? Where did they go next? And there's obviously a sort of a preferred route, an optimal route, but some may have gone somewhere else and wasted a bit of time, but then eventually got the answer. So they're using that, in their final marks. And we were holding our breath that everything went right for them, but 100 students survived. It all worked well.